Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope you will be fine by the grace of Allah Almighty. My name is Muhammad Masood Alam and I am a visiting lecturer in Education University, Johorabad. Dear students, today's our lecture is about the poem Birches by Robert Frost. Okay, dear students, before going towards the poem, I would like to give some biographical element of Robert Frost as well, because biographical element is the thing that helps us to read between the lines written by the writer or the poet. It is a fact that whatever a writer sees or a poet sees, it has a certain effect on the mind of the writer. And if we consider the poet, whenever a poet sees something, his imagination gets flyover. Seeing the thing and just thinking something else is the quality of Robert Frost as well. Moreover, Robert Frost spent most of his life in the lap of nature. His father bought a farmhouse in New England, Hampshire, where he and his wife spent most of their lives. And because Robert Frost spent most of his life in the lap of nature, we find the evidence of that atmosphere, that environment in his poetry. Robert Frost, named Robert Frost, birth 1874, and he was died in 1963. Got education, Lawrence High School, Dartmouth College, Howard University. Okay, dear students, Birches is a poem remembered for Frost's third collection of poetry, Mountain Interval, which was published in 1916. As I have told you earlier, that life of a writer helps us to comprehend or to get the essence of the lines. So, before going towards the deepest part of the ocean, I would draw your attention towards the life of Robert Frost. Robert Frost was an American writer who described reasonable New England life through language and circumstances familiar to the common man. Why did Robert Frost describe the New England's life? Students, because he spent most of his life in that period, in that area. In 1900, Robert Frost moved to New Hampshire, a place where his father had a farmhouse. It was during this time Frost adjusted himself to a country life. Truth to be told, he developed a portrait well and started setting huge number of poems in this lap of nature. It was this period in which he created some masterpieces, dear students. Okay, now we delve into the depth. First, main themes of the poem Birches. Why I have selected to give you the idea of themes before going to the paraphrases of the text, because themes helps us to understand the poem and its paraphrases and meanings. The first main theme is relationship between imagination and reality. Dear students, as I told you earlier, whatever a writer sees or a poet sees, his imagination flourishes, and he sees something that is before his eyes, but seeing helps him to go into the idealism, to go into imagination. And this creation of imagination, seeing the certain thing, is basically the skill of the writer. So is Robert Frost's skill as well. Dear students, that here the speaker draws parallels between the tree and himself as he was a kid and swinging on the birch tree's tree branches. The speaker, the narrator of the poem. Here, the narrator passing through birches, and when he sees the birch trees, seeing the birch trees helps him to go into his boyhood, when he used to swing on these birch trees. So, further he appreciates the picture of ice as a broken glass to sweep away. Okay, now the birch trees is covered with snow. It's a winter season, okay, and covering with snow, because of the burden of the snow, the tree branches, the birch tree's branches have bent down. So this is the main picture before the eyes of the writer, of the poet, and how his imagination flies over. His imagination flies over towards two things. First is his boyhood activity, when he used to play, to swing on these birch trees, and because he swing time and again, that is why those birch trees bend down. Those branches of the birch trees bend down. This is the one thing. And the other thing is that the birch trees are bending down towards the earth because the load of the ice. So when the sun rises and the ice melts down, those ice changes into crystals, into pieces, and falls on the ground. And seeing that the ice has fallen down, had slid down on the earth, his imagination goes towards the mirror, to the broken glass, to the image of the broken glass, and he compares the broken of the ice, and it's coming on the earth. He compares it to the broken glass. His creative mind accepts full play as he sees the ice, the crystal shells shed from the trees, as such heaps of broken glass to sweep away, and you would think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. Here, his imagination, I think, has gone towards the third party. What? Ooh, that is, the heaven had fallen. You can say that the dome of the cathedral or the church has fallen, and maybe his imagination has gone towards the church or the cathedrals. Okay, dear students, we come towards the other slide. In the other lines, speaker imagines that the board branches in the summer have their leaves trailing on the ground, like girls on the hands and knees that throws their hair before them over the heads to dry in the sun. Dear students, just keep in mind one thing is the one imagination point of imagination is going towards the back towards the boyhood when he used to play on the birch trees. Number one, and second is the broken glass, the crystals of the broken glass. When the glass breaks, it comes on the ground, and its crystal just spreads away on the earth. Number two, and number three is the broken of the inner dome of human. Number three, and now comes the number four image. Four images that the birch trees, the branches of the birch trees have bent down on the earth like an umbrella, fallen umbrella on the earth, and his branches are touching the ground. Why his branches are touching the ground? Because of the load of the ice that has fallen over the tree. Now his imagination goes towards the certain idea when he in his life he saw the spectacle that a girl when after having a bath comes in the sun to dry its hair, and the girl just bends down on his knees and spreads his hair in the sun to dry. So four kind of imagination I think the Robert Frost has described here. And we can say that the Robert Frost has created a relationship between imagination and reality. Students, reality is the birch trees, the branches, the bend down branches, the ice, and imagination are the four things that I've just told you. Okay, dear students, the next slide is imagination is often more pleasing than reality. Shift to ice storms. He knows it's from ice. Shift back to swinging. With all her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them. While passing through the birch trees, he knows that it's ice, it's winter season, and the trees of the branches of the trees of the birch trees have bent down because of the load of the ice that has fallen on the branches, and that is why those branches have bent down and touching the earth. But he says that okay, that the branches have bent down, but I just prefer that some boy should have done this. Why? This is the imagination. I have just told you earlier in the opening slides, dear students, that whatever the poet sees, and that seeing gives him or helps him to go deep into the valleys of imagination. This one is another thing. Now, writer says that I should prefer to have some boy bend them. Why? Because the imagination is often more pleasing than reality. Reality is the bending of the trees, but imagination gives him help, gives him freshness, gives him takes him to the period of his boyhood, when he used to come here and swing those birch trees, and the swinging of the birch trees made those branches bend down, and in way he, though that imagination gave him a lot of pleasure than the reality which is before him right now. Relation between youth and nature. Whenever he sees birch trees and their branches that have been overloaded by the ice or twisted by breeze, the speaker would prefer to imagine. How? Once myself a swinger of birches, and so I dream of going back to be. Dear students, you have just listened some of the stories from your grandfathers and grandmother who used to tell us that when we were young we went to such and such places and we used to play such and such games. Why did they do so? And if we look to the eyes, when they tell such kind of stories of their young age, of the mischiefs of the young age, they smile as well. We can find the freshness in their mind. We can find the certain pleasure on their faces, as if they have not grown old. They have gone just into that certain period, and that certain period brought even the tears of happiness in their eyes. In the same way, Robert Frost creates a link between youth and nature, and whenever he sees the birch trees, the bending down of the birch trees, and he knows that this is why the birch trees, birch branches have bent down because of the load of this. But he says that once I myself was a swinger of birches, and so I dream of going back to be, and he yearns to go into that period, because going into that period gives him happiness. He feels happiness more than not in seeing the picture that is before his eyes, but he feels more pleasure to seeing the picture and going back into the imagination. Okay, dear students, relationship between youth and nature. Another example, it's when I am weary of considerations and life is too much like a pathless wood. Whenever your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs, I would like to get away from earth a while and then come back to it and begin over. Here there is a diversion. What kind of diversion? A bit of didacticism as well. It's when I am weary of considerations. Students, we know that life is teemed with problems. We daily face many problems of life. And the writer says that whenever I am weary of considerations, whenever I am get bored and due to the monotony or get tired by the drab routine of the life, whenever your face burns, it means that the problems, when just puts a lot of burden on the minds and on the mind of some person, he becomes weary, and in that weariness, what does Robert Frost do? Or what does Robert Frost want? He says that I would like to get away from the earth a while. Okay, leave the routine aside for some period, some time, and then go back to it and begin over. Then go back to it. What does it mean? Going back towards the lap of nature, one thing. and that lap of nature which is the bending of the birch trees, and seeing and that picture lap of nature, because he had spent most of his life in the lap of nature, and that lap of nature has many connection with his boyhood activities, with his happiness, the way he used to play there, the way he he got pleasure from that time. That is why he says that I come back to it and begin over. This line is basically the didacticism. Why? If he becomes bored because of the considerations and the problems which he faces during his life, he says, okay, get aside for some time, going to the lap of nature and going towards the imagination. Why? Not as an escape. We could not say that Robert Frost is an escapist. No. The last line tells us that he is not an escapist. He then come back to it, mean he will get freshness from that imagination and the picture of birch trees, the lap of nature, the picture of lap of nature, and then where will he go? He will come back to face the realities of life. This is what I told you, that here the writer Robert Frost says that there is a kind of didacticism in his writing as well. Okay, dear students, another thing, relationship of nature with post-colonialism. In under mentioned lines, the poet conveys the message that if people are oppressed for longer period, they lose their power to resist. Student, a new thing that has been created by me from these slides, from this line of the writer. We know America has to go under a certain period, under the colonial period, British colonialism, and whenever a writer writes about the rights after the colonial period, we can say that this is the post-colonial literature. And in the same way, why did I deduce this point of post-colonialism? Because the lines of the Robert Frost moved me to do so. Please put your attention towards the lines. In undermention, and they seem not to break, though once they are bored so low for long, they never right themselves. One by one he subdued his father's trees by riding them down and down over and over again, until he took the stiffness out of them, and not one but hung limp, not one was left, and for him to conquer. The main thing is, the reality is, that in his boyhood, in his form which his father has bought for him, he used to swing those birch trees many a times in the day, and swinging time and again on those birch trees that made those birch trees bend down. And when he bends down the certain branches, he goes to the other tree and do the same activity, and the bending down of the branches goes one tree to the other, one tree to the other, one tree to the other, and not even a single branch left. Now the writer says that if the certain branches are bent for a certain period of time, they lose their resistance to go back to their original position. In the same way, that if the people are bent down, if the people are tyrannized, if the people are pressed for a certain period of time, they lose their resistance, they lose their identity, they lose their original position. That is why I have created the slide relationship of nature with postcolonialism. Okay, rational approach supersedes pleasure and excitement. I would like to get away from earth a while, and earth the right place for love, then come back to it and begin over. Okay, dear students, the poet Robert Frost here says that I would like to get away from earth a while, as I told you earlier, getting weary of the certain considerations and then going back, and earth the right place to love. No, the earth is a place which created problems for Robert Frost, and he left the earth to go into the lap of nature, into the imagination, into the idealism, and then getting freshness, going back to the earth. He does not abhor earth. He does not detest earth. He loves earth. It means he loves to tackle, to face the problems. This is the main thing in these lines. Okay, dear students, now time has come to go into the deepest part of our lecture. I think I do not want to take you to the ocean. This is not an ocean, because we have surpassed many waves, and now I think when we will go through the other lines, you will see that the waves have been faced very accurately. Text and interpretation. Line 1 to 7. When I see birches bent to left and right across the lines of straight but darker trees, I like to think some boy has been swinging them, but swinging does not bend them down to stay, and ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice in sunny winter morning. Here the same thing, reality and the imagination. And other lines, but swinging does not bend them down to stay, as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice, sunny winter morning. The writer says that swinging does not bend them down to stay, as ice storms do, because ice storms move the branches of the birch trees to bend down, and the weight of the ice is also help the branches to bend down. And this is the one thing that the reality, and now in the other line we will see that he will go towards the imagination. After a rain, they click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many colors as the street cracks. Students, here in these lines, reality is being shown. After a rain, they click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many colors as the street cracks and creases their enamel color. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal trees, shattering and eventually on the snow crust such heaps of broken glass to the sweep. Now comes the imagination. Broken glass to sweep away, and you would think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. The imagination number 2. And over the erases their enamel, or cracks and erases their enamel, mean it's reality that whenever we it's a reality that the rains, excessive rains, remove the enamels, remove the paints, remove the texture, remove the color of the certain things. That is why whenever it rains, we put certain things under a shade, so that the color or the things do not get destroy, or their color do not get fade. This is reality, and the last lines, last two lines, number one, number two, imagination. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many colored as the stair cracks and erases the enamel. Soon the sun warmth makes them shed crystals, and this slide has been already given. I have explained. Now students, comes towards the next slide, 8, lines 8 to 14. Clearly the snow have solidified into precious stones, and when they break and furor through their polishes or the external layer. This is the value told you. What's more, after underlying softening, the broke ice gathers beneath the tree as though it were a heap of glass being cleared into the dustpan. Imagination. Breaking of the ice, and the breaking of the ice, and then the pieces of the ice coming down on the earth. One thing, that is reality. And imagination is the breaking of the glass, then spreading it into the pieces, and then those pieces when comes down, when a glass breaks into pieces, it comes down on the earth, and someone with dustpan just collects those. And the same thing, imagination and reality we can give you the example as well. Okay students, now line 15 to 20. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are bowed, for so low for long, they never right themselves. Postcolonialism. For so low for long, when certain thing is bent for a longer period, it loses its resistance. What kind of resistance? To go back to its original position. This is what a resistance is. You may see their trunks arcing in the woods, years after years, trailing their leaves on the ground like girls on the hands and knees, and they throw their hair before them over heads to dry in the sun. This is another thing that I have just told you earlier in the slides. The themes, that imagination, that seeing the bending of the tree, and the comparing that bending of a tree to the imaginative idea, the girl spreading her hair on the ground in her hair after bending down on the knees to dry her hair. Okay, dear students, if we go to the last lines, at that point the narrator contrasts these trees and their bowing trunks like young ladies on all fours that toss their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. Now we come towards the lines 21 to 32. But I was going to say, when truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them. The yearns, the imagination is being given more importance than reality. Why? Because imagination is linked with his past period. What is the past period? Past period is his boyhood period, which he has spent in his farmhouse, in the lap of nature. And the last lines, by writing them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them. And I've told you that in the boyhood he whenever a birch tree is bent down, he just leave that tree because that tree will not help him to go high up into the sky. That is why he used the stiff tree branches because that stiffness will give him a height to go up. Okay, in the next slide, the poet is trying to avoid the reality here, and he is trying to escape reality. He likes to think some boy has bent them on his way back home after herding his cows. The narrator likes to imagine the kid going out to his dad's plantation and climbing his dad's trees by riding them down again and again until he removed the stiffness. Already explained. 32 to 41. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon. And so, not carrying the tree away clear to the ground, he always kept his poise to the top branches, climbing carefully with the pain you use to fill the cup up to the brim and even above the brim. Then he flung outward, feet first, with a swish, clicking his way down through the air to the ground. So was I once myself a swinger of birches. Okay, dear students. The imagination. No boy is now before the eyes of Robert Frost is swinging the birch trees right before his eyes. No, not at all. The branches of the birch trees have bent down due to the storm that has just come down on the trees, number one, or the load of the ice. Now he says, he just describes in detail the activity of the swinging of the birch trees. He says that whenever a person does this activity, swinging of the birch, swinging activity, it just when it comes down on the earth, he puts his feet on the earth and with the feet he pushes back the earth, and that pushing back helps the person to go high into the air. And this is a skill, and this skill is being linked with the activity, kitchen activity. What kind of activity? That whenever you pour tea into the cup, and you do not pour tea into the cup very carefully so that the tea do not cross the brims of the cup. So in the same way, the person who swings this activity, he does this activity, whenever he touches the earth, he pushes back the earth with his feet, and that pushing helps him to go high up in the air. Sorry. The kid has now gotten a specialist in twisting the trees, as he has taken all there was to find out about not jumping starting out early, and so not diverting the tree clear to the ground, and he is careful. These thing has already been told. In the last line he says that so was I once myself a swinger of birch trees. This is the activity that has been done by the poet. In the lines 42 to 49. And so I dream of going back to be. It's when I am weary of considerations and life is too much like a pathless wood. These lines have been very clearly explained by me in the themes. that whenever the writer gets weary of considerations, gets bored, he just leave those things aside and go into the lap of nature, and then and flying the fly, and then that going to the lap of nature helps him to think something else, and that thinking something else help him to get pleasure and to get strength, and then getting the strength, going back towards the earth and facing the problems. So in this way, the narrator needs to escape from the earth for some time and afterwards return to restart his new life. This solid feeling of idealism is obvious in these lines, as normal with the sentimental artists like Wordsworth, Keats, Byron, and so on. Dear students, the writer has been referred below. Wordsworth was a great poet of nature. Okay, and his poem Daffodil, you have remembered though the poem, dear students, and that the seeing of the daffodil becomes the permanent, takes a permanent place in the in the poet's memory, and whenever he gets sad, he gets weary of considerations, as does the Robert Frost. That, and he just opens the cupboard, the old cupboard of daffodil's memory, and when he opens that cupboard, it gives him a lot of pleasure. So the writer says the same thing here. We are going towards the 50 to 59 lines, the lines 50 to 59. May no fate wilfully misunderstands me, and half-grown but I wish and snatch me away, not to return earth's the right place for me, for love. I do not know where it's likely to go better. I would like to go by climbing up a tree and climbing back branches up, snow-white trunk towards the heaven, till the tree would bear no more, and but dip its top and set me down again. That would be good, both going and coming back. One could do. Okay, now here the writer says that the swinging of the birches trees, if we just keep in mind the activity, once the man goes back and then his feet touch the ground, and then touching the ground, it goes high up in the air, and from that going high up into the air is the spirituality, is the idealism, is the imagination, and from there he gets the pleasure, he gets the freshness, and then coming back to the earth, it means he coming back to the earth to face the problems. One could do worse than the last lines. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches. He says that swinging of birches is a great activity and one should do this. The artist needs the destinies to half award him a desire to leave from this world, from his duties. The word half award is of significant here, as he would not like to leave for all time. He needs to come back to his world, as he believes earth to be the opportune spot of affection. Earth is the correct for love. The poem ends on a lighter note, stating that one could do worse than be a swinger of birches. The writer says that swinging of birches is a great activity, and one should. There is nothing more pleasant than this. So, dear students, I have explained you the life of Robert Frost and some of the themes of this poem, and then I took you towards the paraphrases and the meaning of the text, and I hope you have understood the main themes and the meanings of the text. I will end my lecture here. Thank you very much, dear students. Stay safe.